Okay, guys, real quick, before we get into this episode, we want to let you know what you're about to hear. Now, every year for our other brands, we do what we call a summer freelance summit. We bring in some really fantastic experts to talk about all kinds of interesting and important topics. And we thought, hey, this is great content. We should be sharing this with our Energize Your Online Business audience as well. So we culled through, picked out some really fantastic episodes, and that is what you're about to hear.
Yeah. And if you hear the term freelancer or freelancing, that's because it's part of our freelance summit. But know that these topics are just as applicable to business owners of all kinds, not just our freelancing friends.
This is some really, really good stuff. We're sure you're going to enjoy it. So stay tuned. Session 1 is being hosted by Jess Keating. Jess is a scientist, an artist, a speaker, a creativity anti-guru, and a best-selling author. She's the poster child for multi-passionate creatives looking to build an unconventional career in a conventional world. Who's excited about that? Me. And the name of her session is Show Me the Money, but Keep the Stress. So, Jess, we'll let you take it away.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I am thrilled to be here. I'm a huge fan of Nikki. I'm just scrolling through here. I'm also a huge fan of Caitlin, who I know is the mastermind behind this amazing summit that you guys have. So what I'm going to do super quick is share my screen so we can get cracking here. So this is Show Me the Money, but Keep the Stress. I'm here on behalf of this movement I would like to bring to help fellow creatives not only make amazing money with what they do, but actually like doing it. So also known as how to make more money as a freelancer without crushing your spirit or losing your mind. Because let's face it, as I say here, it is not easy out there. And I know there are a million people out there who are aligned with helping you make more money. And I've met them. They're wonderful people sometimes, but there's this like amazing thing about being a creative person. And I'm going to assume if you're in this space with us, you identify as a creative person. The ironic thing about creative people is we're all freaking different. Isn't that shocking? It is so shocking that we are all different. So that means that what comes easily and naturally and feels fun to me might not actually be the same thing that works or feels fun for you. So my job is to help you suss out the right way for you to do all of these incredible things, make more money in your business, but do it in a way that doesn't make you feel like absolute crap. Okay. And I wanted to mention really quick, I know these sessions can go really quickly. My name is Jess Keating. If you did not catch that, it sounds like I'm saying just kidding, but it's actually Jess Keating. I know we're big on AI these days. I promise you, I'm not like a robot. I'm a real human person. And I'm very, very excited to be here. So super, super quick introduction here. As Nikki mentioned, I'm a best-selling author. I'm an artist. I'm a scientist. And I am proud to say that I'm a full-time, lifetime creative entrepreneur. And that sounds really fancy, but what it means is I have never had a quote normal job. I've never worked for anybody else other than when I was 16 and I worked at my mother's party supply store. So I blew up a lot of balloons back in my day. And I realized very early on that that was not the life that I wanted. And because of all of these really bizarre combinations of science and creative work and almost the spiritual side of being a creative, I've learned that there is both an art and a science to making money as a creative, as a freelancer, while still actually liking what you do. And I've been fortunate enough that my work and my writing has been featured in all sorts of awesome places that you can see on the right there. Well, let's get cracking here, okay? Because I know we have a limited time and I want to cram as much goodness into your noggins as we can. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is what I call money blocks and your meat suit. And this is the term that I like to describe our human body as, right? We want to think that we're these incredible creative spirits and like, yes, we are, but nature bats last. That is the number one rule of science. And if it is going on in your human body, it can also have a huge effect on the work that you do as an author or as a freelancer or as a writer. And that is so, so important to kind of get an understanding around. Then we're going to talk really quickly about the science of self-sabotage and how we can work with our human bodies along with the things we want to do and love to do and build those money dreams as we go. So before we begin, the Keating no BS disclaimer. Now, I want to make it very, very clear here. I know when we talk about things like making money and business and entrepreneurship and freelancing, there is a metric buttload of privilege out there. Okay. I'm an Indigenous person, but for example, I happen to look like this. So I have a lot of privilege in my lifetime that allows me to interact with the different fields that I do. And not for 1 second do I want you to think that I'm implying that, the patriarchy isn't real, or like there is not systemic discrimination across all boards in entrepreneurship, and marginalized voices do indeed have a tougher time of it. That is why I am here. I'm here to lift up women in particular, but also marginalized voices. But I do think it's important to point this out, that we can also be mindful that there are things that we can't control, but we also play a very, very powerful role in our financial and money reality. Okay, so I just like to put that out there, because I know the minute we start talking about money, people can get kind of testy, right? Like I've been doing this for a lot of years and I know it can bring up some stuff. Okay, so this is really deep work and it takes time. So if your goal today is like, I'm just going to become a millionaire in this half hour, maybe we just set that aside and just let it unfold as it needs to, because I promise you, this is actually subconscious work. It seems like I'm going to be here talking at you for like 40 minutes or something, but what's actually happening is I'm going to be kind of dropping little breadcrumbs, and your subconscious is going to hopefully open up to those ideas. And it won't be till later tonight or tomorrow or next week that you're going to start getting insights, because that is how your amazing brain works. Okay. So why does this matter? Why are you here today? I know you want to make more money. Who the hell doesn't? Like, I make great money. We all make great money here, but we also want to make more. But it's not because we're greedy jerks, right? And it is fine to want money for money's sake, but this matters because as creatives making money, we are in fact global equity in action. Okay, this is how we level the playing field and make sure that we can take part in helping the planet with what we do. And there's one thing, I didn't have this in my notes, but it's coming up right now. There's one thing that I want you guys to remember, no matter how you identify, right? But it is important to remember that the studies all show that the more women have more money, the healthier the planet is. And I just find that is just, that right there is enough to keep showing up doing this day after day after day. But I know that you're not probably sitting here as a freelancer thinking like, damn, I can't wait to save the planet. I know that's not the point, but this is the big picture here, right? Your words and your work and your creativity changes the world. And I truly believe that you deserve to get paid so well for it. So my goal for you today is the very specific clarity, okay? Again, I'm not here to help you make $1 million in an hour. There's lots of people that will promise that. If they do, run, right? I am here to help you find these specific areas that are keeping you from being your richest in all ways self. And as I mentioned before, with the subconscious door opening up, that truly is enough, okay? And when I say richest in all ways, I mean financially, but also with that sense of fulfillment of like, yes, this is the right life for me. I have time to spend with my family, my kids, my dog, whatever it is you prioritize. That is also a metric of richness, okay? So it's kind of about finding this beautiful middle ground where we feel happy where we are, but we're also always challenging ourselves to aim for more. So really quickly, when we talk about making more money in business, right? What do we think actually does this job? What do we think does the trick, right? We often think it's the right offers that do the trick. We think it's the right strategies. We think it's the right pitches, even the right work ethic, right? And all of these things are true. When you find the right for you strategy, that is going to make things click. When you find the right way of, as a freelancer, putting your pitches out there or developing your portfolio of work, when you find the right for you way to do that, all of that stuff will fall into place. But there's one problem. What actually does the trick is clearing the blocks to you accessing all of that information. Okay, so what do I mean by this? The thing is, money is actually very, very simple, right? In order to make money, we need to execute certain steps to put our work out there in the world. And then we need to basically put up a buy link, right? And market and do all these other things. But because you're sitting here today, with the intention of, okay, I want to watch this session to make more money, that, according to your body, your human body, is something new. Okay. So because it is a new thing, even making one more dollar today that you didn't make yesterday, your body is going to see that as a threat. Now, I know if you're hearing this right now and you're thinking like, bull crap, right? Like, my body doesn't see, give me the millions. I'm so sorry, but it's true. This is just one of those, it's an undisputed fact about kind of our physiology. Anything remotely different that you need to do to create more money in your life is going to send up so many freaking red flags in your body. And because of that, that is when our friends resistance and self-sabotage come into play. Okay, so that means this is why I'm here today. If you want to make more money, you actually need to make that subconscious stuff conscious. And if you hear that and you're thinking like, that sounds like a really daunting task, like that is, how am I supposed to do that? Freud, right? Like, get on the therapy couch. It doesn't take that. Because the amazing thing is about your human brain is like, we have had this beautiful mechanics in place for millennia. All you have to do to make the subconscious conscious is give your brain a problem to ping against, right? It's kind of the equivalent of me saying, don't picture a pink elephant, right? The minute I say that, your brain's like, oh, okay. Like you just go right there. So that is the kind of work that we're going to be doing today. So now that you know your body doesn't want you to make more money, we have to remind ourselves that this work is actually much less about this, like thinking and all of this, figuring out the strategies and this and that. It's more about working with your holistic ecosystem. So in my work, I call this like the money ecosystem that we're building, both within our businesses, say, for example, a strategy like Nikki has, like with an awesome circuit, that is part of a money ecosystem in your business. But we also have a money ecosystem in our bodies. So because our body is literally scanning for danger every 4 freaking seconds, anytime you have an insight or a piece of awareness or a strategy or step that you want to take to grow your business, I guarantee you, if it's new, your body's going to say, no, don't do that though, right? I want to implement this funnel. I want to pitch this client. I want to do all these things. Your body will be like, nope. And the one thing that I often see people doing is they try to enforce willpower, right? They want to use motivation. They want to use their willpower. Motivation and willpower are cheap, my friends. You do not want to be leaning on those things. You will have it for like 5 seconds, maybe between like 9:30 and 10 in the morning. Then you're toast. I see people nodding like, this is just not the way you want to do it. So what you want to remind yourself is that these systems are here to protect you, right? All of this physiological resistance that you feel is actually not the enemy. That's really the first step, is reminding yourself, I am alive because of these biological systems that keep me safe. Right? So don't hate on your body. Don't hate on your self-sabotage. I always hear people like, oh, how can I beat my resistance? It's like, don't. Your resistance is beautiful. It keeps you alive every day. It keeps you from walking into traffic, right? So it is the same thing going on here. But once we remember that a crappy, familiar money reality is going to feel safer to you than an unfamiliar, wealthy reality, that is when things will start to shift. And I actually have this twice. I don't repeat it myself a lot in here, but I want you to really embody this for a second. Ask yourself, like, does this feel true to me? Because even if it doesn't, it is. And you can almost look at your own trajectory, because we are, as humans, what we repeat. Okay. So a crappy reality today that you might have or that I might have is going to feel safer than an unfamiliar, amazingly glorious and wealthy reality. So, as I said, the mechanics of money are not complicated. We have to, there's a few stages, and yes, there's all sorts of variation here, but that's where this work matters so much, because who's to say what's right for you, right? If you don't find your individual blocks at these different stages, you're just going to take on anything and wonder why it doesn't feel good, right? So you've got to first make the thing, right? Whether it's, pitching a client, the actual piece of copywriting work that you're working on, you've got to dream up the business that you're trying to create here. Then you have to create the business structure to support the thing, right? So for some people, they might do, webinars or funnels or a circuit or this, or like all of these things. There's a million choices. You need to find the right one for you, which is also tough. Then you need to, my favorite part, show up and be present and sell the thing. And you would be amazed at how many people, specifically women, have a very hard time being seen online for like, look how awesome I am. Like that, I could do an hour session just on that little aspect there. So you have to show up and sell the thing. And when we're doing that as creatives, it's also worth noting, you're not just selling like a business thing. As a freelancer, you're selling something you value. And I don't just mean like, here's the thing I value. I mean, it matters to you. That is why business as a creative is not just business as usual, because we actually give a crap about what we're doing. We're not working for some boss so they can spend half the day in the gym. We are working on something that matters to us. And then the second last step is we have to meet the world with that thing, with this business that we have. And that is how we create impact. And then the best part, you've got the buy link up, you've got the exchanges going, and you meet all these people and you make all this impact. You want to be receiving and keep actual money from the thing. But this is where someone like me comes in, because as easy as that sounds, we also have all of these blocks, this resistance to finding our way of actually executing those steps. Right. So as you're thinking about this, as we're moving forward now, I want you to start, you don't have to do like the whole, like put your hand on your chest thing and whatever, but I want you to kind of be thinking, what is pinging within you? Because we're getting kind of to the juicy stuff right now. So really quick self-check here. When I talk about these blocks here at all these different levels, they can show up in so many different ways. And I want to reiterate, I know we use the term resistance and self-sabotage, but also add the term protective there. Okay, so if you have, for example, a fear of failure or fear of success, if you're selling the wrong things, and what I mean by wrong is wrong for you. Like maybe you've taken on some quality in your business because you saw somebody else do it. And you think, oh, well, they made millions, I'll try that too. But it feels like crap. That is a sign that you have this kind of thing going on. You might be feeling a lack of clarity. You might be feeling resentment or envy, which is keeping you scrolling your Instagram, thinking, oh, so-and-so has such a perfect life and her hair's gorgeous and she's got no freaking pores. And how is she doing all this stuff? That, my friend, is a protective resistance, because that's you not doing the things that you need to do to get your own business going, right? You might have imposter syndrome, procrastination, perfectionism. One of the things that I see often in women is undercharging and over-delivering, with this idea of like, oh, well, that's just my work ethic. Right? Like I was born, like this is what my family does. We over deliver. It's something that I love to do. Over delivering is great if you get paid well for it and you don't burn yourself out. Right? But how many people do we know are burnt out currently? Right? Like it's just the norm now. Like burnout is kind of a badge of honor, sadly. You might have a fear of showing up, as I mentioned. You might have some really deep generational money traumas and money wounds, which I know I pretty much can bet, I think everybody in this space would probably have some of that going on. And this is not just if you were born without money, by the way. You can also have huge generational trauma if you were born absolutely loaded. Doesn't matter. You might have witch wound stuff, which is very related to the idea of showing up and taking up space as a woman, particularly if your creative work is in any way outside the norm of what is kind of seen as like, proper business stuff. You might have a creative intuition that feels completely stagnant or stalled. You might have a belief of, I'm bad with money. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you have like maybe heard other people say before, or if you felt it yourself. You might be overworking yourself. You might have just a general sense of overwhelm. You might also believe, and I want to mention this one, that women who talk money are tacky. Right? Like there's probably like some part of you in here is like, oh my God, she just keeps talking about freaking money. Like it's so tacky though, isn't it? It's kind of greedy and it's gross. Like that's a block. That is a huge block to you showing up and me being like, give me more money, right? Not even from the universe, from your clients, right? Like you need to be able to sit proudly in these things. You might be underinvesting in yourself and your business. And you might have my personal favorite, the starving artist, starving writer, starving creative syndrome, which is just a general, we all know what that is, right? But it's this general sense of no matter what I do, it's never enough, or like my work is noble, so therefore I should not be paid. All of that stuff. This is like a fraction of it. But what I did, because I know this can be like a lot, there are hundreds of these, by the way. What I've done is I've broken it up into 3 main parts. And this is the part now where, as you're sitting listening to me, I want you to ask yourself, where do I feel the most pinging, right? This kind of, think of me like a musician twanging a guitar string kind of in your heart right now, resonating. Where do you feel the most pinging? If I say to you, do you have resistance or self-sabotage around the actual creating or honing or crafting portion of your freelancer business? Meaning like getting things up on a website, for example, or creating something like a portfolio piece, or reaching out and giving yourself the structure to do that work. Do you have an issue with that? Or do you have an issue more with like going on Instagram and being like, here's my business, right? Like hanging up the shingle stuff. Do you have a hard time maybe going on lives or chatting on podcasts, or even saying out loud? Here's a big one, saying out loud to your peers or your family or your clients, like, I want to have a business doing this. Like it's such a simple thing, but so many, especially women that I know, have a hard time verbalizing outwardly the goal they have. And it's one thing to keep, yes, you want to protect your goal, you want to protect your heart, but there comes a point where you have to basically like plant your flag and say, I'm doing this, world, here's what I'm doing. And you can, when you think of it like that, you can see how much self-trust is needed, right? Because when you're doing that, you're also saying, I trust myself to be able to handle whatever the heck comes my way, now that people can see that I'm gutsy enough to want to make money doing this skill, right? So does that feel like it's more your area? Or do you actually have most blocks around the earning and receiving and scaling stuff? Meaning, if you were one of the people listening and you kind of got a ping when I said like, oh, people shouldn't talk about money though. Like it's kind of tacky. It's kind of like money is, kind of bad voodoo there. Like, I don't want to look at it directly. If that's your vibe, then that is more of what I would call the quintessential money block, where you're getting into issues with integrity or power or authority or wealth as a freelancer. So to make this really easy, what I've done is reminded you, I want you to think of this and think of what was happening in your body. And then we're going to go to this age-old adage that we have from the writing community, which I'm sure you are all familiar with, which is show, don't tell. You've all heard this, right? Like this is kind of, day one of like how to write. They say show, don't tell. But I want you to remember that this is what you actually have to do with your body. Okay. So even if you're saying to yourself, this is why I don't use the term limiting beliefs very much. I don't actually believe we have limiting beliefs. We actually just have limiting relationships to our beliefs. You don't need to change your beliefs at all. You just need to remind yourself, oh, they're just thoughts, and they're as real as anything else that I choose to make real. But because your brain won't let you achieve something that you feel is dangerous to you, that is when the really fun, juicy stuff starts. So just like you would have to show, don't tell in a writing piece, you need to start showing your body that more money and the steps that you would take to create it, meaning showing up more, putting up the buy link, going on a live and talking about your work, all of these things. You have to incrementally show your body that it's safe. And the beautiful thing is, because of neuroplasticity, it actually does not take that long for your brain to realize like, oh, I didn't die, right? Like it sounds so like crucially simple, but because you don't die, the very next day, you will find it slightly easier. Okay. So what the heck do we do with this? So the first thing I want you to remember is that awareness is your best friend. Okay. And this is one of those things where it is very easy to overcomplicate. And, I get a lot of people that come to me and like, they're like, help me bust the blocks that I have and like all these things. The minute you get awareness on it, think of it like a spotlight, right? Like if you got a spotlight, you're going around in your subconscious. The minute you feel that ping, your spotlight's on it already. That honestly is enough. That is enough to start shaking this process and kind of loosening that inner behavior that you've got. So from there, you just have to excavate what your body believes. And the easiest way to know this, and we'll move to this in a second, is when you're looking at these different stages of like building your business and running your business, when do you tighten up? Like, what is it that actually, if you have no problem making portfolio pieces or, working on a website or whatever, where is the gap? Where is that kind of bridge too far where you're like, oh, I'll procrastinate instead, right? Those are those situations that you kind of want to ask yourself, okay, what can I do to make this conscious? And then this is where I wish we had like a full day together. But when you've done that work mentally, that is where you get your body involved again. And you just basically tend yourself with the you-based tools through the process of change. And this is where I want to point out that step there, nobody can tell you what that is until you have started to practice and do some different stuff, because it's all this physiology. I would love to say like, oh, meditation's the answer. But guess what? Some people get more anxious when they meditate. I would love to say to you, affirmations are the answer. But guess what? There's a lot of research that affirmations hold us back, right? Like all of these things go on. So it's really about you finding your own way to tend your body through that self-compassion so that you can take those incremental baby steps. So I wanted to share really, really quickly here what this can look like in action, because I know it can sound very like vague and esoteric. So what I've done, we've got a creation block, a visibility block, and like a money and power block. So for example, creation block wise, and again, check if this pings against you. This is why I'm kind of mentioning these. So we have Susie, who is absolutely incredible writer, who just did not have access to her full creative intuition because of a subconscious fear of outshining her sister. And she was afraid that she would be outcast within her family. So why was she afraid of outshining her sister? Well, when she was younger, her sister was sick, that's terrible. That's devastating. But you can see how with Susie, that has nothing to do with business, right? Like that's just one of those personal, kind of fear of like showing up and making the thing you want to make. It's like Susie subconsciously knew, if I actually access what I want to create here with my business and shape it like that, it's going to work. It's kind of a fear of success, right? It's going to work. And because of that, it's going to throw my family into this turmoil. Or we have Asude, who's a freelancer who I worked with, who held herself back from submitting, right? Like she had was kind of like hoarding it, like a big old Smaug the dragon, like on her desktop. And she was afraid of putting it out in the world because of this innate family story or fractal that you have to struggle to succeed, and that creatives just are not reliable. I think she had an aunt or something that like blew the nest egg or something trying to be a painter. And that caused this huge rift in the family, wherein the message that her body heard was, well, if you're a creative, you can't be trusted, right? So why would she want to be out there in the world? It's like, hi, I'm a creative, like pay me money, waving this flag, if she felt like it was going to just destroy her ability to be part of her family. Like that's some heavy stuff. And then you have Heather, who wanted to keep working on her business, but she was having these really big issues with accepting money for her stuff. Like she was able to get out there, but she was having a hard time. Like she was undercharging, over delivering. Oftentimes, one of the dead giveaways is if the links on a website don't work. Like you've got everything set up, but when you go to buy, it's just like, we're sorry, like you get like 404. That's a really good indication that something's going on. But that was because for her, it felt dangerous to make more money than her partner. So again, she's kind of like future pacing herself, right? This fear of success was, well, what if, Tommy or whoever he is gets angry because he doesn't feel like he's, being like a provider in the family. And in reality, her husband was a lovely guy. This was just stuff that she picked up from her parents, right? So all of these things, you can see how there are so many issues that can come up that have absolutely nothing to do with business. So I want you to start today and begin this process by giving your brain and body something to react to. All right. Because the best part is your body won't lie. Like your brain can lie to you until the cows come home, right? Like we are all like this is fine with me. And like you can say all the right stuff, but remember, show, don't tell, right? So your pings are going to give you this indication of where you will be experiencing resistance when taking action. And here's the thing that made it easier for you that I mentioned a couple slides ago. So where are you at right now? if I asked you, if you were sitting down in front of me and I said, okay, do you have a hard time getting your actual business up and running? Meaning like crafting the ideas, like what do I even want to do as a freelancer? Like what areas do I want to explore? If you have a hard time nailing that down, that is actually a creative intuition block. It's a money block in the sense that it keeps you from making money, but it's actually a creative intuition block. But if you say, okay, I have a hard time showing up, sharing my stuff, and like actively selling that, that's more a visibility block. Okay. And if you have a hard time, as soon as you mention money, like as soon as that exchange happens, or you have a hard time receiving or even keeping money, like if you're somebody who maybe you're fine getting paid, but then instantly you spend it, right? That is because your body feels it's safer to have $0 ready, right? Like at the ready to go. This is one of the big reasons why you've probably heard this study before where they've done like a long scale study of people who won the lottery, right? So whether it's $1 million or $20 million, if you follow them like a year later, they're back to where they were because their nervous system was just like, cannot handle it, cannot compute. And nobody was able to wrangle them to put it into a bank account long enough to let it do some good, right? So you can see by this thing, if you say to yourself, okay, I keep procrastinating instead of making a pitch. And this is just the procrastination. This is why it's important to do this granular work. Because if you say to somebody or to me, okay, I have a problem. My problem is that I procrastinate. Like, cool. Where? That is what matters. Because if you don't have a problem, creating or making stuff or, shaping that part of your business, your intuition is probably pretty solid. If you have a problem, if you start procrastinating instead of posting about or selling your offer, that indicates, okay, we've probably got like more of a visibility thing here. So how about we dig around in there and start doing that work to find out where those pings are happening? Or I keep procrastinating instead of setting a good price or like invoicing a client. That's another biggie. Like you'll do the work and then like you've got to send the freaking invoice off. And it's like, well, no, I don't want to bother them. It's like, no, like bother them, right? That's an indication that you've got like a bona fide money block. But with all of the other examples that we covered, of which there are hundreds, of course, like you can see how perfectionism, like what might that look like here? Well, I keep being a perfectionist instead of actually getting a pitch out the door or getting an offer in place. Well, I keep being a perfectionist playing around in, freaking Canva rather than posting the thing. Or I keep being a perfectionist about like, oh, what the invoice looks like, right? Like all of those things give you so much really, really valuable information. And once you can get granular with that, that's where the magic happens, because it is not enough to say, oh, I procrastinate. Like that, you have to be a scientist. Honestly, you have to start self-studying what's going on. And from there, you can get so much further. And I want to say, I know this has been a quick little, we're all zipping through here today. I know all the sessions, I'm sure, have been quick. If it seems daunting, it is not normal to build a rich and creative life and build this thriving career, but you can't afford to be normal. But the one great thing is, you, my friend, are a creative. And this is why you are a creative. All of these amazing tools that you have at the ready to make amazing creative work or writing or like all of this stuff, you can apply to the creation of your business too. Okay. And that's the one, it's almost like it feels like a magic weapon that I think a lot of writer types and copywriters and freelancers don't understand, because they apply their creativity to the work they're doing, right? Like, here's the thing that I'm writing, which is fantastic. But you can also apply all of that creative juice and mojo to the process of healing your crap so that you can build the amazing business and learn all of the steps that are right for you. That is how you not only make more money as a freelancer or as a creative entrepreneur, but that's how you do it in a way that feels good, rather than just like soaking up everybody else's stuff and saying, okay, well, let's try it. Right? So good. There in a lot of agreement. Everybody's fantastic. Such a great presentation, best presentation, insanely good presentation. Yes, amazing. And I have to agree, there's definitely things that I had some aha moments of things I've been doing lately or earlier in the year. So I really do want to underline that this is stuff we all go through. You don't get to a point where you're like, now I don't have any blocks. It's just, like you think, and people think there's a number. Like they think, oh, well, once I'm this, like, no, in fact, it can sometimes get exacerbated, right? Because now you're afraid, oh, you're going to lose it, right? Like all of these scarcity things come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What would you consider the type of procrastination if you're getting stuck in like the learning process? If,
Okay. Yeah.
They're like, so I can't get myself to get back in there.
There's something that I call, I don't know if this was a woman who mentioned this, but there's something that I call smart girl syndrome, which is where we often feel like we need to just be like a little bit smarter to keep towards the goal that we want. And there's this another phenomenon called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the smarter you are and the more capable you are, the more imposter syndrome you will feel. Okay. So if you feel a sense of like, oh, I can't do this, honestly, just be like, well, Jess Keating told me that means that I'm really freaking smart. So like that can honestly be enough. But I would say that part of procrastination is actually probably more of a visibility thing. And I believe it can show up. You can imagine how it could show up in these different tiers. But I believe that when you're doing that, you're doing it because you have this belief that there's this like magic bullet response, secret key to whatever, like all the way that things are marketed, right? Like, here's the key to this. And like, this will cure everything wrong with you, all that stuff. Because of that, you've kind of bought into this idea that there's this magical one answer, when in reality, you need to iterate that answer over time. Like there is anybody here, who has had any form of success can say, yeah, there's never been like one little thing that's the thing that made me an expert. It's doing the stuff day after day after day to let you realize like, oh, I like this, but I don't like this. I'm going to cut this out. All of that practice comes into play just as you're shaping that part of business. But I believe that it's probably on the cusp of that creative intuition / visibility thing. But it also depends where you are in your stage of career. Like, is your business kind of like landed kind of, and kind of where you're going in that direction, or is it just starting? So where you are along that trajectory, generally I find that people who are saying, okay, just one more course, one more, like credential, one more little number, letter after my name, that's normally a sign that they've kind of lost their own internal North Star of that inner value for what they want to add. And again, I want to remind you, like, I am no stranger to like getting one more degree. Like I'm one of those gigantic, like I'm a science nerd, like give me all the degrees, but we can't let that give us the validation to do this kind of work. If you were a brain surgeon, you need letters after your name, right? But with this creative work, like it is coming from your creative heart and spirit and experience and all that stuff, you have enough to go for. You really do.
So good. Well, and I'll get to the question, but I'm just thinking here, I would think that the kinds of people who are willing to become freelancers, right, are willing to change their career, are willing to go on their own, tend to be high achievers. And I'm not saying that just to blow smoke to all of us, although
well,
but like, and I think that there's something in being a high achiever when you start learning something new, that when you come up against something that's hard, it's almost especially difficult because it's like, but I'm
because you're so used to things. Yeah, you're so used to being this genius, right? Or an expert, or highly executively functioning, if you know what I mean. And the thing about overachievers is like, I mean, we got to. I'm one as well. Pretty much everybody here probably is, right? We have to remember that the overachieving. I call this like proof goals versus awakened goals. Sometimes we want a goal because like we think it's going to be like the thing that makes you feel like you've got the sticker, right? Like a lot of high achieving people were after that gold star. And gold stars are great, but it needs to be something that we give ourselves, which is how I think it plays into this idea of like, okay, I'm procrastinating by taking one more course, one more thing. Whereas in reality, if you're feeling that way, you probably need to execute something, like create something, even just to show your body that it's safe. And then that, like, it doesn't matter what it is, put something out there on paper so that you can remind yourself through that kind of incremental step.
If I'm excited to do something, but I have a partner and other people in the chat put family member, friend, etc., is not super supportive, how can I overcome that block?
So two things. One, and I'm going to presume like this is like unsupportive in the sense of like, we're not talking like abusive or anything like that. That's a different scope here. But if we're talking about somebody who like just does not get it, like, when it happens, I've been very fortunate that right out of grad school, I told my then boyfriend, now husband, like, I don't think I want to be a professor anymore. I wanted to be a prof. I was going to do all that stuff. I was on that track. And I was like, I think I want to be a writer. And then, like you basically watch this like 6-figure career, just like poof, like, that like possible reality. I was fortunate to have really supportive people. But honestly, what I believe one has to do is you have to ask yourself, is this person's lack of understanding or support around this way that I'm headed, is that enough of a reason to not do something towards that goal? And I'm not saying you got to say like, oh, screw you, like all that stuff. But is that enough to completely bypass your goal? And most of the time, no. And I hate to say it, but like, this is one of those instances where like, if you have to say, I understand you don't get this, but this is something that's deeply important to me. It's kind of like painting the walls a different color in your office, right? Like if they're not in there, you can kind of paint your walls whatever color you want, right? And if it's something where like you're thinking, okay, well, financially, this puts us into this situation. Of course, like there's all these inner dynamics of like partner and family and all these things. But I do think this is where it is equally important when we were talking about like the visibility stuff, like how it's actually really hard to be like, I want to have a business doing this. It's not just hard to do that outwardly, for like peers here today. It's just as hard to do that within your own family unit. And that is where this kind of healing work can help you so much. Any type of healing work can help you so much, because I know it takes guts and strength to be able to say like, I know that this looks like I'm facing something very daunting and damn near impossible, but I'm still really compelled to do it. And honestly, in my opinion, you cannot let other people stop you from doing what you know is right. And that is not me saying like, oh, tell them to screw off. It's not that. It's about creating the safety and framework for your own dreams and allowing that to be enough and saying, okay, this is going to be a challenge and I'm not doing it to prove myself to anybody else. But I think as creatives, there's jobs and then there's callings. And, sometimes we take jobs, it happens. But if there's something like the starting or running of a business is, I believe, more of a calling, because if not, there's a million other ways to make money, right? So if you're feeling that, I think it's creative self-harm to completely ignore it because of what somebody else says.
I love that.
It's a weird, like, I never want to be like, do this, but like, it's like I hope that you feel empowered to at least, again, baby steps. We're not saying sell the house or whatever. We're saying baby steps. Can you open a Word doc and let yourself feel okay doing that for yourself?
So good. Jess, this was amazing. And I think we could probably have hours and more questions. Jess, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.